Hello, everybody, and welcome to our fourth live show. We are still learning the ropes on this thing, but it's been a lot of fun. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm here. Mara, as always, is manning your questions and everything else. If you want to ask a question, as always, we've got the Streamlabs and Superchats going. $5, you can get your question asked during the show. $15, we've got special breaks that we can take right if there's a break in the news story, we'll take it right then or right after a news story to get your question right up the front. So we'd love to hear from you and get your questions about anything that's going on in the world of entertainment right now. It's been kind of a busy week. None of the big blockbuster stories that we've had the last couple weeks, except for the big HBO Max Discovery Merger that we talked about on Charts this week. If you haven't seen that, we broke down the merger with Warner Media and Discovery. They are joining together as one company that will be separate from AT&T. This is about 3 years after AT&T merged Warner Media into them. So it's been a crazy week as far as the media landscape goes. We're going to go a little bit deeper down into that deal and a big announcement that HBO Max made at their upfront presentation earlier this week. So that's where we're going to start today. Thanks for joining us, and I can't wait to hear from all of you. But HBO Max, which launched last year, didn't come out of the gate too terribly strong, but had a big splash when they announced that they're going to be doing the day and date thing with their movies this year with all of the movies from Warner Brothers. Well, they announced yesterday at their upfronts that there will be a new ad-supported tier that's launching next month in June. It will be $9.99. That will be $5 cheaper than the current price of HBO Max. So it'll put it a little bit closer to the norm for streaming services. At $14.99 a month, HBO Max was kind of on the top end of the streaming services. But there is one crucial detail that I did not see very right up front in the HBO Max announcement. And that kind of makes sense when you think about it. It's the fact that this will be a lower cost $9.99. It will be supported, meaning that there will be advertising on the programming. HBO Max has said that they've already sold tens of millions of dollars in advertising, and they've also said that they will have what they call the lightest ad load of any of the streaming services, meaning they believe that you are going to see far fewer ads on HBO Max than you will on any other streaming service. But the one caveat is that people that subscribe to the ad-supported service of HBO Max will not be getting access day and date to the movies that are going to be released in theaters in 2021. Again, that's not something that is terribly surprising. You have to keep premium value and quality for your existing subscribers. I'm sure that they don't want a whole lot of people saying like, well, I don't mind ads. I'll jump down to that $9.99 tier. Their point is not to keep people on the streaming service. Their point is to grow the streaming service, to expand the base and not devalue it for their existing customers. There's a global release that's happening this year. They're rolling it out in different countries around the world, and they really want to make this as accessible as it can be. So it's not a huge surprise that this is going to be the what you're giving up. But considering how aggressively they push the fact that they have day and date releases, it's interesting. And I wonder if there's going to be a whole lot of confusion on the part of the consumer once this all launches about, someone's going to subscribe to HBO Max and they'll say, okay, yeah, I'll take ads. The HBO material will not have advertising at all, they've said. So it will only be the third-party movies and the other material that they have that's not, Last Week Tonight or the other shows that come directly from HBO. But how many people are going to subscribe? And then when Space Jam comes out or The Conjuring 3 comes out, are going to say, oh, wait, I'm subscribed to HBO Max. Why can't I see the movie? I think you're going to have to do a lot of consumer education there, because if you don't, then you are probably going to have a lot of confused and perhaps angry consumers. So that's going to be interesting to see how forward they put that message, because it's important for people to know. But at the same time, you don't want to advertise your new ad-supported service by promising what you won't get if you're a subscriber. This was an expected thing for HBO Max. It's a big week for them. Of course, this merger with Discovery and then spinning off from AT&T is not going to go down for another at least 12 months because it takes time for regulatory stuff to go through. It takes time to get all of the details approved. There's going to be changes up at the top. Jason Kilar, as we talked about, the current CEO of Warner Media, is out, essentially. I mean, there's been no official announcement, but it sounds like he is going to be out. And so there are a lot of things that are still left up in the air that we still don't know about all this. But that is the official word that came down this week about the HBO Max ad-supported level. And more to come on that. Before we go to the next story, which is also at HBO Max, Mara reminded me that we actually had a few questions that came out last week after the show. Some of you, and thank you very much, some of you watch the show and will send in your questions after we're live, or maybe come in right at the end. And I want to make sure that you get your questions in as early as I can get them. MRMAI2ZS. I'm not even going to try to see what that would have been phonetically. Send a donation. Thank you very much. Hi, Dan. I'm a fan of your work since the Screen Junkies days, and I always appreciate how genuinely thoughtful and kind you are, especially when it seems many others would say/do outrageous, often hurtful things just for the views, lulz, etc. Work plus kids keep me from engaging more. Well, thank you very much. I mean, it is a broad spectrum of folks that are doing this on the internet, and everybody has their own approach to it. There's a lot of different philosophies to it. Actually, this ties into something that I wanted to mention up at the top as well. This was going viral, I guess, or at least I was seeing it being circulated around Twitter as I was coming on. But last week we talked about Emily Blunt and Fantastic Four. This is going off the Andrew Garfield discussion we had a couple weeks ago, where she said that she wasn't going to be Sue Storm, and that was it. As far as I'm concerned, like, great, that's it. Well, she's doing the rounds for A Quiet Place Part 2, which opens this weekend, and you can imagine what she's being asked about more than anything. And this was a short clip. I hope that the rest of the clip will come out so we'll know a little bit more. But this is Emily Blunt's reaction to, I believe, as she says, the fourth time being asked about Fantastic Four during the press junket for A Quiet Place Part 2.
Fantastic Four.
I know,
Are you
the
prepared?
I know. I've done 3 interviews and everyone's asked.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's like I say, the reason I say that it ties into this question is that I from one point of view, and I don't know who was asking that question, but if they don't own the outlet that they're there for, my guess is that they were probably under explicit instructions from whomever is above them to ask Emily Blunt about Fantastic Four for this exact reason. Because if you get some kind of a nebulous answer or reaction, then you get blown up all over the internet. But the problem is that everybody goes in there with those instructions. Everyone goes in there being told to ask about Fantastic Four. And I've seen a lot of, world's smallest violin playing reactions already on Twitter to this, saying like, oh, I'm sorry that you have to answer a bunch of questions about your movie. But that's the thing, is she's not being asked about her movie. She's there to promote. It's like Andrew Garfield. She's there to promote a completely different movie. And then everybody comes in and keeps asking her about the same thing that she can't confirm or deny. She has actually denied it. But, if she's playing Invisible Woman / Sue Storm, she's not going to tell you. I mean, I hate to tell. I'm sorry. She wouldn't tell me if I was sitting in front of her either. But some people, as this comment said, some people kind of have an approach of just like, well, we know the answer we're going to get, but we have to run this thing. We have to get the clicks. Listen, I love when a video of mine does well. I really do. It's great. I'm a young channel. I'm still growing. But my approach is not one that's just like, well, whatever will get the click. Maybe I overcorrect too far that way sometimes, but I appreciate you saying that. I try to balance things. Sometimes I do things that I know are going to click well or that people are going to be interested in, but I always try to at least add some value to that or my spin on it or my opinion or something that makes it not just, I just want your click and I don't really care about anything after that. I really do want to give you something beyond just here's a topic that people are talking about. So thank you very much for that question or comment. Another one from the same person. Actually, 2 more from the same person. Thank you so much. As an immigrant from Taiwan, regarding Spencer's question on Shang-Chi, which was a question that was asked last week, breaking out for the Asian audience. For me, there's not a shared, quote, Asian identity among the different ethnicities, Chinese, Korean, Filipino, etc., that is analogous to Black or African American. That's something that I think is very important to recognize, that when we talk about anyone's culture or cultural identity, you also have to recognize that no culture is a monolith. And when you regard something as being for Asian culture, well, there are so many different countries, so many different backgrounds and beliefs and everything else that are in that I think it's important to not just paint one culture, any culture, with a broad brush. And I think that sometimes Hollywood studios do that. They say, we're going to make it for this group of people because, everyone likes the same thing, right? Well, no, that's not true. And I think that we're getting to a point now where more people recognize the fact that you can't pigeonhole one group of people as they all like this or they all like that. it is a wonderful kind of mixture of people in every part of the world. And then another question, Shang-Chi, as I understand, is a Chinese character, and I can't expect non-Chinese to fully relate. There's not been any time in U.S. history that blends all Asians into a shared identity. I hope Marvel learned from Doctor Strange and the Ancient One, which there was a lot of comments that were made actually by Kevin Feige this week about how they felt that in casting Tilda Swinton as the Ancient One, that they thought that they were avoiding a controversy because they weren't going to play into the stereotype that had been set by the comic books, when in actuality, they kind of faced a different controversy by removing that character's Asian background altogether. They then were accused of whitewashing, and they were accused of being disrespectful to that character's heritage. And so it is I acknowledge that it is a tricky line to try to figure out what people are going to respond to, what they're not going to respond to, and there are going to be mistakes that are made along the way. I've made them. Everyone has made them. But the fact of the matter is that, hopefully over time we're getting to a place where there's an understanding that everybody has their own background to try to tailor something to a group of people, to everyone, that just this is going to please everybody. That's a very cynical thing. And I hope we're coming to the other side of that. There are a few more questions. This one's from Stacy. Hi, Dan and Mara. Just wanted to say hi. There's a cat on the desk. Stacy didn't say that. I did. I just wanted to say hi. Cole and I are watching Flight of the Navigator, but if you're still live when it's over, sorry, I'll come back and send you a sticker. The GIF attached to this is from Cole. Okay. Yes. Thank you, Stacy. Hey, Dan, you should reach out to your old friend Mike Carlson to guest on his theme park podcast The Ride. It's already covered. Oh, sorry. That is from Snookmaster 20. Thank you, Marge. I had to call out Snookmaster 20. Podcast The Ride already covered the Universal Studios Jaws ride, and I'm sure they'd revisit it for you. I think you'd fit in perfectly with them. I love Mike Carlson, and I love that podcast. And listen, anytime those guys, I would never go to them. They have a great thing going on, but if they ever reached out, I would be happy to do that. Spencer donated and said, Dan and Mara, you guys are awesome. With anticipation high for In the Heights and general positive enthusiasm for the Dear Evan Hansen trailer, do you think that musicals could be the key to help bring more mid-range films back to theaters of all genres? A lot of people have been asking about musicals because we have a lot of high-profile ones coming in. Musicals are very complicated movies, so some of them are mid-range productions, but usually if you're doing, especially an adaptation of a big Broadway musical, then you need a big cast, and they're very big productions. However, I do think if we get out 3 or 4 different musicals that are of great quality, if In the Heights and Dear Evan Hansen both do really well, I think you're going to be more receptive to getting those musicals made and getting a bunch of more people on board. I would love more mid-range films. I don't think you need every musical to be a $5 or $100 million adaptation. I think that if we can just get more movies that are made kind of in the middle and that can succeed on those terms, then everything's going to be a lot better. I'm being reminded, please, to squish that like button. Squish it. Squish the subscribe button if you haven't squished it as well. I very much appreciate it. And I think everybody that's watching, this show's a lot of fun because I get to do the news. It's a little more relaxed. Mara and I get to hang out. She writes me notes and keeps me on track. I get to answer your questions. So yes, if you're liking the show, please squish the subscribe button and also that like button. Mystery Me says, hey, Dan, want to get in before the other anime suggestions with one of my own. And I apologize if I'm mispronouncing this, Promare or Promare, which is currently on HBO Max. Apologies if there was an exclamation or a accentuation on any of those letters, but thank you very much. That goes on the list. Brantley Wheeler says, hey, Dan, fellow Arkansan here. Hello. What are your thoughts on movie musicals, and what do you think of In the Heights, Dear Evan Hansen, and West Side Story? Like I said, I think that I've actually never seen the stage versions of either In the Heights or Dear Evan Hansen, or West Side Story, but I've seen the movie several times. I'm a big musical fan. I love Mara and I took a trip to New York several years ago, and we went to see the Book of Mormon, which was great. We had a great time, and I just love live stage production. There's an energy to it. The idea that you're never going to get that exact performance twice, which is incredible. So if the musical adaptation is done well, I love a great movie musical. So I am very curious and anxious to see In the Heights. I've heard so much about Dear Evan Hansen. West Side Story, I love the movie. We'll see how different the Spielberg movie is from the original. I'm not really digging like a full just recreation of the original West Side Story, but I'm a big Spielberg guy, so of course I'm anxious to see that. Greg Troyan says, thanks for the Steinman love last week. Anime suggestion, Dragon Ball Z, hugely popular and influential, Batman 89 level. I suggest the Cyan, oh boy, I've gotten in trouble with this before. I acknowledge that it's Cyan or Saiyan, and I'm sorry if I mispronounced. I'm sure I butchered it. This is the one thing I have to learn with my anime things is to get the names right. I'm still working on my Demon Slayer review, and one of the things that I'm trying to make sure I get is the pronunciations correct. And Frieza arcs. So again, that goes on the list. And Benjamin Franklin, a founding father, thank you. Do you have any thoughts on the score for Spy Kids 2, The Island of Lost Dreams? Thanks and keep it rolling. I don't, but you asking me if I have any thoughts for the score for Spy Kids 2 makes me think that I should check it out. So you know what? I'll check out the score for Spy Kids 2, and then I'll get back to you. Let's get back to the news. And another thing that's related to HBO Max that also came up, and this has been such an interesting thing to track, and it's one of those things that's kind of a sign of the times. And that is Harry Potter. When HBO Max launched, there was a big announcement made like, surprise, you can watch all the Harry Potter movies on HBO Max. But then that ended after like a few days. They were gone. Now it's been announced that for the month of June, Harry Potter is back on HBO Max, but only for a month. Then it'll be gone again. And this has happened a few times now. Harry Potter will show up and then it'll disappear and then it'll show up again and then it's gone again. Some people have asked why, and in case you don't know why, this is one of those things that is just one of the growing pains parts of what we're going through right now with these different streaming services, which is that for years, Disney had the broadcast rights to the Harry Potter movies. That's why if you turned on ABC Family at really any point in time prior to 2015, 2016, they would just be showing Harry Potter movies. Then the rights came back up and NBC Universal got the rights to show them, which is why if you turned on Sci-Fi for a certain period of time, they would only be showing Harry Potter movies. But Warner, who owns obviously HBO Max, they made the Harry Potter movies. They own the franchise to a degree, although Universal owns the theme park rights. It's a very complicated thing. But basically, the issue is that NBC Universal technically has the streaming rights to Harry Potter. But from time to time, I'm not sure the exact agreement before them. They will go to HBO Max for a little bit, and then they'll go back to Peacock for most of the time, which is, of course, the streaming service owned by NBC Universal. So that's why Harry Potter keeps ping-ponging back and forth, is that HBO Max and Warner Media, they technically own the franchise because they are Warner Brothers movies, but then the streaming rights are technically owned by NBC Universal, which is why they're on Peacock most of the time, and they're just going to ping pong back and forth, and there's not going to be any end for quite some time, because from what I was reading, the streaming rights are not back up for renewal until 2025. What's going to happen in 2025, of course, is that there's going to be a huge bidding war, and almost certainly Warner Media is going to pay an obscene amount of money to get back the rights to stream the movies that they already paid to have made. Of course, they also already got the profits from those movies, and weirdly got the profits from NBC Universal paying them to stream the movies that they're going to later pay for. This is all very convoluted and complex. And I just don't know how this is all going to shake out, if I'm being honest, because there are so many weird intricacies to this thing and so many corners. And then it's just like, well, what happens when one of these things merges? What happens when somebody folds? There was already talk that with Warner Media, that if they hadn't had this merger with Discovery, that NBC Universal was looking to potentially buy out Warner Media and merge with them. Well, then what happens? That's going to happen. There's going to be somebody who owns a major streamer at some point down the line who's going to merge with another company that owns a major streamer. And then who knows what's going to happen? Do they just both take the market share? Do they combine? We're contracting, basically, is what's happening. Everything is contracting. Things are getting much, much smaller. One side effect of that is, of course, layoffs, which sucks. There were a huge amount of layoffs, reportedly over 1,000 layoffs when Warner Media and AT&T merged. And they became, Warner Media became a subsidiary or whatever you want to call it of AT&T. Now, reportedly, there could be hundreds more layoffs with the merger of Warner Media and Discovery, because there are now positions that are redundant between those two companies. And when Fox and Disney merged, there were a bunch of different layoffs. That's what sucks about this whole thing, about things getting smaller, is ultimately, the CEOs either get incredibly enriched. I was reading that the CEO of Discovery Plus or Discovery that is helped kind of engineer this merger along with the CEO of AT&T. He got a stocks package worth, over $100 million. And of course they vest over time, but it's going to be worth over $100 million. Jason Kilar, I promise you, even though he's not going to have his job as the CEO of Warner Media anymore, is going to get a massive amount of money to leave the job. He's going to get tens of millions of dollars and then probably go sign at another big company where he's going to get paid tens of millions more dollars. Those aren't the people that get hurt when these things happen. The people that get hurt are the people who work in marketing or the people that work in accounting or the people that work in these divisions that are duplicated between two companies. And when two big major companies merge, then half of those jobs sometimes are eliminated. And you have hundreds of people or thousands of people that are now out of a job in a space that has fewer opportunities because there are fewer companies and it's getting smaller and smaller. That's who gets hurt by these mergers. And I know that a lot of people are excited by the possibilities. Deadpool is going to be in the MCU now. That's great. But at the same time, there is a human cost to these things, and it's not talked about a lot. It should be, but it's not. This is a story that we were talking about. Actually, I'm going to bump it up a little bit because it relates to it. There's another studio, MGM. MGM is one of the studios out there that's kind of on its own, more or less, to a degree at least. Amazon says that they are, or reportedly, they don't say, but it's reported that Amazon is in the market to buy MGM for $9 billion. So then now Amazon will have MGM as part of its portfolio. That is not just the film studio, and I'm sure that you're going to consolidate operations there. That means Amazon, when you talk about the movie library, and this is really what so much of this is about, is gaining access to that library, saying like, we can exclusively offer this, or if they want to license this stuff to other people for a large amount of money. Amazon would get access to the James Bond library of films, the Hobbit movies, the Rocky movies, and the Creed movies, the RoboCop franchise. You're also looking at Silence of the Lambs would fall into that. Stargate, which I saw a lot of people were excited by the possibility. Oh, well, if Amazon gets the rights to Stargate, maybe they'll make more Stargate. Maybe they will. I don't know. Survivor and Shark Tank are MGM productions, which that kind of makes it weird of like, well, okay, if they're streaming on Hulu, for example, right now, or if Survivor is streaming to Hulu, The Handmaid's Tale is an MGM production, which is exclusive to Hulu. If they get bought by Amazon, is Amazon now going to say like, well, we don't want you streaming over there. We don't want to license your content to another channel so you can get them subscribers. We want you to come over here. Again, these are the kinds of things that are going to have to be sorted out. All of these different shows and movies that are licensed and were made by a company who licenses them to another company, but then are absorbed by a different company that now has a streaming service. Are they going to continue to license that? Or is it all going to move under one umbrella? We don't know. We don't know how these things are going to work out. Nobody knows how these things are going to work out. But, I've been saying this for quite some time. This is not just a series of mergers and acquisitions. That has been the case. I mean, studios have been merging and unmerging and spinning off and doing whatever for decades now, since corporations came into the business and started buying movie studios. But we are seeing a wholesale revolution in how media is consumed and how it's distributed and who owns it. The idea that the corporate partners aren't now just owning the studio. They now are heavily involved in the creative decisions and the production of the studio and tying it in with their products like AT&T was planning to do and did do to a certain extent with HBO Max, of just like, we have HBO Max. You can get it if you're a wireless subscriber for free. I had that for a while, it's like, oh, okay, sure. But now, does that get undone? Everything right now is in flux, and it's insane to think about all the different ramifications of what's going on. Let me check and see if we've got any questions that I haven't asked yet. I don't know if we have. Oh yeah, we got a few. Okay. Cutter Hale says, hi, Dan. I don't know if you remember me, but we met in Houston. I was in a New Moral Order shirt, had glasses and curly hair. Well, first of all, thanks for coming out at Houston. I love anybody sporting the New Moral Order shirt. I might have to dig that out someday. Who knows? What are your two favorite movies so far this year? Mine are Those Who Wish Me Dead and Nobody. I've seen Nobody in theaters 6 times. Wow, I'm glad that you could go see a movie 6 times in a theater. Love from Texas. You know what? Let me consult my Letterboxd just to see. because I'm got to be honest. I have not seen as many movies this year as I would like to have so far. Like the Mitchells versus the Machines, I haven't seen. It is on my list. It's been kind of a nutty year as far as time and managing time, etc. But of the movies that I've seen so far this year, I mean, I've got to say that I liked Army of the Dead. I enjoyed that. That one's coming out on Netflix this weekend. So if you weren't able to see Army of the Dead, it was in a small-ish number of theaters just this past week. I really enjoyed Army of the Dead, and that might be, like I said, there's so many I haven't seen and that I need to see. I mean, I liked Zack Snyder's Justice League. I did. I don't know if it's going to be amongst my favorite films of the year as I get through the year. But there are others like The Mitchells vs. the Machines and Those Who Wish Me Dead on HBO Max that I've not seen yet. It's actually a shamefully low number of movies for me to have seen so far this year. So I wish I could be a little more informed in my answer to your question. Nathan Lightower says, thanks, Dan, for your hard work and especially your box office videos. What movie do you think will be next to break the highest grossing record? That's a great question. I mean, when you look at the history of movies, particularly recently, I mean, Endgame, I guess, Avengers Endgame would have been fairly predictable that one was going to break the all-time box office record. But going back to the last few, I don't know if you would have predicted going in that Avatar was going to be the movie that broke the all-time box office record and then re-broke it this year globally, or that Titanic was going to be the movie that set the all-time box office record. Now, we are at a point now where it does seem like mostly franchise movies. The Force Awakens, a lot of people would have seen that coming. But I think, even though I'm not that interested in it, I mean, how many times have we counted out James Cameron and said he's not going to do it or this movie's going to fail? It happened with Avatar. It happened with Titanic. So I guess if you're going to make me predict, I would say James Cameron has some kind of, I don't know what kind of magic that makes him seem to conjure up these hits from out of nowhere. So that's the most likely without a new big Star Wars movie on the horizon. The MCU, I think, will probably continue to do well, but I don't see an Avengers Endgame level thing coming up. I honestly think that we may see this record stand for a while because to get to that record, you have to be beyond just a good movie. You have to be a real phenomenon. And I just don't know if we have anything coming up, at least that we can foresee right now, that's going to reach that level. But you never know because things come out of nowhere all the time. Clay Brown says, Dan, did you ever watch Stargate SG-1/Atlantis? I saw a new Stargate show might come soon. Well, yeah, Clay, that is kind of mixed up. And for what I can read, that's mostly speculation from people saying this new merger coming in with MGM and Amazon, people saying like, oh, well, Stargate could be a franchise that Amazon might want to launch some new stuff. I never did actually watch Stargate SG-1 or Atlantis. I am a big sci-fi fan, but I've actually never gotten that much into sci-fi TV. I'm a big Star Trek guy, and even Battlestar Galactica, but I never really got into Deep Space Nine or Voyager. Even as a Star Trek fan, I was mostly original series and TNG, and Battlestar Galactica I didn't get into until late. So a lot of the great sci-fi shows out there I've never actually seen. The Stargate shows are things that I've heard about for years. Actually, were really good. So for the fans of those shows, maybe that will come to fruition. Cutter Hale says, are you excited for The Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard? I love The Hitman's Bodyguard, and I'm super pumped for the sequel. Are you going to theaters to see A Quiet Place 2 and Cruella? I bought tickets to see both in D-Box. I think that, The Hitman's Bodyguard I thought was a great, to me, kind of 80s throwback, but it was kind of like for me, just kind of a middle of the road 80s throwback. So I didn't really dislike it. I just kind of enjoyed it for what it was. So I wouldn't put The Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard like at the top of the list of stuff that I'm excited for this summer. But you have great actors in there. You've got Salma Hayek, you've got Samuel L. Jackson, you've got Ryan Reynolds. That's great chemistry potential. So I'll check it out, and I hope it's great. I hope every movie's great. I am going to the theater to see Quiet Place 2. As a matter of fact, next week, charts might be a little bit weird or on a different schedule because we have to travel a few hours to see it. But I wanted to see it in theaters, and this was the opportunity for me to see it early enough. Although I've seen a lot of reviews have already come out, my only opportunity to see it before it came out was a few hours away. So Mara and I will be taking a trip next week to see A Quiet Place 2 in theaters. Cruella, I will be watching at home. I actually have a chance to watch it this week for a very limited time to get a review ready for next week. So Cruella is one that I will not be able to watch in theaters. The big thing being, because I relocated and I'm not in a major city, it's tough for me, and I'm working on it with the people that I'm able to connect to find screening opportunities, but they're not as bountiful as they would be if I were still in Los Angeles. And I knew this going in. I knew that this was going to be part of what came with the territory of moving. So it's probably going to be that a lot of my screenings, especially if they stop offering the at-home option as theaters are open more and more, it may be that a lot of my reviews are coming out like right at release, because I'm not going to be able to drive several hours to see every big new movie. I'm going to see the ones that I can. But, for me, it's still, I want to see as much as I can in a theater. And honestly, as long as people enjoy me reviewing the movies, it'd be nice to get them early. Of course, it'd be nice to get them early and see them early. But I think just being part of the discourse and being part of the conversation is the most important thing for me. So I'm going to keep looking for the opportunities to see them early. You're probably going to see a lot more right around release time, but that's okay. It happens. It's part of the show. Corey King says, hello, Dan and Mara. What is your favorite or most listened to movie soundtrack of the last 10 years? And how are your cats doing? Our cats, Lil Jon and Batman. Oh, Mara, those are two great cat names. Lil Jon and Batman. Send their greetings. Wow, my most favorite or listened to soundtrack of the last 10 years. Sing Street, probably. Honestly, I listen to the Sing Street soundtrack all the time, more than any other soundtrack I can think of. Our cats are doing great. Muffin had her surgery a couple weeks ago. She's jumping around and getting into mischief as usual. Sir Pounce, as usual, is curled up right basically in Mara's lap, or right in front of Mara's lap, on top of her computer currently. So the cats are doing pretty much what they do. But thank you for asking. And best regards to Lil Jon and Batman. Let's get back to your questions in just a moment. Please, I'm telling we have 550 watching and 150 likes. So if you don't mind, just take a moment and squish that like button. It helps the show grow and helps people find it. I would really appreciate it. But I want to actually take a moment to talk about two people who passed away in the last couple of days that were particularly huge influences in the comedy community, and I do this on charts, and I'm also going to do it on this show, because I feel like people that make these contributions, we should recognize them and give them their due. The first is Paul Mooney. Paul Mooney was massively influential, particularly in the career of Richard Pryor. He wrote a lot of material for Richard Pryor. He wrote for Richard Pryor's legendary appearance on Saturday Night Live. He wrote for the Richard Pryor Show, which in turn brought in a lot of names that would make huge waves, including Robin Williams, over the next decades of comedy. He wrote material for Richard Pryor stand-up specials, including Live on the Sunset Strip and a lot of other ones that were released. In Living Color, he was I believe the head writer for the first season of In Living Color, and was a huge shaping influence on that show. People of my generation probably best know Paul Mooney through Chappelle's Show. That's where I was first introduced to him through several different recurring segments on the show. He always made me laugh. I thought he was hilariously funny. And then he was just a name that would always pop up when you would hear comedians talk about influential people and people that were had such a huge imprint in the comedy world. And Richard Pryor, of course, one of the all-time great stand-ups, deserves so much credit in his own right for the brilliant material and performances that he put in. But Paul Mooney also a big influence on his career and comedy in general. And then another name that you may not know, but it's certainly a face that I recognize, Charles Grodin also passed away. It was announced this week. And again, this is a very generational thing. For me, Charles Grodin was in Beethoven, which is a movie that I watched when I was a kid. He was the dad. I remember him from The Great Muppet Caper with Miss Piggy. He was really great in that movie. That's where I first saw Charles Grodin. But for an entirely different generation, people older than me, he was in movies like Midnight Run with Robert De Niro. He was a fixture on late night TV. Particularly on Johnny Carson. It's a time in late night where they would have these comedians, these funny people who weren't there necessarily to promote something, but were just there because they were funny. And I miss that phase of late night TV. I miss the time when you would have a guest come on, and I got there at the very tail end of it. David Letterman used to do this with Norm Macdonald all the time. He would just bring Norm Macdonald on the show because Norm Macdonald was funny and made him laugh. Now it is largely a marketing vehicle. Some late night hosts will still do this, but that was kind of the era where late night shows were mainly about entertainment first and not promotion first. And so you would just bring on funny people. Charles Grodin was one of those funny people. He was an accomplished actor. He was also a writer, television, movie appearances. And again, to kind of transcend the decades from somebody mostly known by adults in the 70s and 80s to somebody that kids my age knew in the 90s. Is pretty impressive. So to both Charles Grodin and Paul Mooney and their families, their friends, two incredible careers, and it'll be a less funny world without both of them in it. Let's see. I think we might have a couple of questions that we haven't answered yet. Dan Byrne donated. He said, "Hey, Dan, I'm a big fan of director Kevin Reynolds, especially The Count of Monte Cristo, Tristan and Isolde, and Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. What is your favorite movie of his, and why do you think he is so under-discussed? Also, please scritch cat for my wife." Honey, could you scritch the cat for his wife? You can't see Mara on camera, but I promise you she's doing it. I'm actually pulling up Kevin Reynolds is one of those directors who you hear all of the different movies that he directed, and it's like, what an odd career. Not odd as in it's just different. So you have Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, obviously, and Waterworld, two big projects with Kevin Costner, Count of Monte Cristo, Tristan and Isolde. Those are his four big hits. He also did Risen, which came out in 2016. I mean, if you're going to ask me to pick a favorite, I think I got to go Prince of Thieves for me, just because I know that it was kind of a joke at the time with Kevin Costner and his accent, and it's fairly shoddy accent work. I will give you that, but it's a great supporting cast. You got Morgan Freeman in there, Christian Slater at his peak, early 90s Christian Slater, and then, of course, Alan Rickman. Alan Rickman alone is enough for me to put that at the top of my list because it's one of the best villain turns of all times. It's what made Alan Rickman such a great person, because he could do literally anything, and he understood what he was doing. It reminds me a little bit of his approach to Snape and his approach to Hans Gruber, which is he knows the kind of movie he's in. He knows what kind of villain he's supposed to be. And he just nails that tone so perfectly, maybe better than anybody else in the movie nailed it. So I think based just on that alone, I'd have to go Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. One named Lucas said, "Hey, Dan, love the channel and all you do. I was wondering if you could ever go over all the movie references in your splash screen. I think I've nailed most of them, but there are a few that I can't put my finger on. Thanks and keep up the great work." Well, yeah, I actually can. I mean, I didn't plan this, but I have it loaded as a background. So let me throw that up here. So this is, you know what? Actually, okay, how am I going to do this? This is going to be interesting. Let me see if I can remove myself. I don't know if I can. And let's see. All right, I'm going to give this 1 second, and then I'm going to. All right, so if I stop my camera, nope, that doesn't work. All right, start camera. All right, I'll tell you what. I will, next time that I'm on, I will, or I'll try to load it while we're talking, but I'll take you through some of that because that was actually full credit to Robert Holtby. If you don't know Robert Holtby, he has done the graphics for Honest Trailers for so long, and he is brilliant at his job. He's brilliant at what he does. And he, I went to him and offered to, hire him, and just said like, "Hey, I'm doing my own thing, and I'd love it if, you could you help me out with an intro?" And we talked a little bit, and he kind of said like, "Well, okay, here, I'll try something." And he tried something, and it was brilliant. It's what he does. It's the intro that you see at the beginning and the end of the show. I'm actually loading it up now, so hopefully we'll be able to go through it. But he literally was just like, "Well, what are some of your favorite movies?" And I sent him a list, and he came up with this. So yeah, let's check that out. So to go through as many as I can there, you've got Bruce Willis up at the top left there. I believe that's Daniel Plainview right underneath him. Gene Kelly. Then we've got Aliens. Schwarzenegger and Terminator is right there. Inside Out is there. You see Bing Bong and Disgust and all of the characters there. Gwyneth Paltrow is lurking there from the Royal Tenenbaums, which is one of my favorite movies. Then in front of her, those fedoras, that's Casablanca. So that's Bogey and Ingrid Bergman. Shaun of the Dead right there below that. I'm trying to see behind. Oh, yeah. So behind Sean there, behind Liz, that's the Raid 2. So that's the kitchen fight scene from the Raid 2. Then we got Richard Dreyfuss there, right next to Sean. Mad Max Fury Road underneath that. Of course, the shark from Jaws there in the middle. Going over to the far left, that's Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Then we've got Empire Strikes Back, The Apartment, Jack Lemmon, Shirley MacLaine there. The top that you see, and Robert added these motions that are in it too. When you see the end card next time, you can see that he added motion. So that's the top from Inception, Jurassic Park, and Dr. Grant with the flare there. Behind the T-Rex there, that's Peter Finch from Network, from the I'm Mad as Hell and I'm Not Going to Take It Anymore. Then you got Norma Desmond from Sunset Boulevard, Captain Kirk and Spock there, right next to Peter Finch. In between them is Ghostface from Scream, which is one of my favorite movies. I tried to represent a different, just like the fact that I love all different genres of films. Now, if you look at the flare in Dr. Grant's hand, just next to that red light, that's the kids from Sing Street. They're kind of tucked in back there. Then next to Gloria Swanson, you've got Rita Moreno from West Side Story, and George Chikris next to her, I should say. Captain America with Mjolnir is right there in the front. We've got James Stewart from Rear Window, RoboCop there, right behind George Chikris. Then we got Peter Sellers from Doctor Strangelove, a little Into the Spider-Verse love there. The little blue antenna here, the electrified antenna, that's Doc and Marty from Back to the Future. Pinocchio back there. Cameron and Sloane, you can see from Ferris Bueller's Day Off, kind of split in the middle by Miles Morales. Then we've got Independence Day with Will Smith, Bride of Frankenstein, Elsa Lanchester, Gene Wilder, and Cleavon Little from Blazing Saddles. And then at the top, you've got Batman 89, Michael Keaton, and Jack Nicholson. So I think I may have missed one or two, but I think that's just about all of them. But yeah, that full credit goes to Robert Holtby, who I just literally gave him a list of movies and I think pulled some images for him and sent them to him. And hello, Muffin. Woo, she scared me. He sent back that great motion graphic that opens and ends the channels. So all praise as always to Robert Holtby, a really great, really talented graphic designer. And I still love seeing his work on Honest Trailers. He's really, really brilliant and one of the best artists that I've come across. Josh L says, "Hey, Dan and Mara, could you give a brief synopsis of the Let's try that again. Live internet. Hey, Dan and Mara, could you give a brief synopsis of the Schmodown? It's a little bit tough to say for a newbie. I've seen a few matches and I love them, but I feel like I'm entering a world I don't understand." Well, I'll tell you, Josh, I've been playing for 5 years almost, and sometimes I feel like I'm entering a world I don't understand. I guess the simplest concept would be it's movie trivia meets the WWE. So it is at its heart, it is a movie trivia contest. But now you have different factions, different groups, people that are working together, people that are on teams together. As of last year now, all of these groups and all of these factions are competing with one another. So you have the competition that you're seeing on screen, but you also have the competition of different factions, and every win is worth a certain amount of points. So also that's kind of like soccer/football, and that you have standings, and this win equals this many points, and you're trying to get faction points as well. But you also have storylines and characters and different things that intersect, and people that have feuds and years worth of history now. And so people are not just being themselves. Some people are playing characters. Some of them are, I play a version of myself. Some other people play completely different people than themselves. So I'm with you, Josh. It is a very difficult thing to jump into as a newbie. I would say just kind of there's some great, I know that there's a great Schmodown wiki that's out there. I would consult that. That's really well maintained and gives a very good synopsis of what's gone on. It started out very small. It really did just start out as a movie competition, trivia competition between friends, and it has grown now into this huge thing where, people from around the world now are participating. And it's nothing that I could describe easily, but that's the basic premise. And then I would say, check the Schmodown wiki, because that is a great kind of distillation of like, what's the history of the singles division and the teams division. And from there, maybe you can try to grab on. But I can't even keep up at this point. There's so many matches every week. Ace Wingate says, "Wanted to say I'm pulling for Beyonce's Black is King at the Emmys the way you were for Toni Collette at the Oscars. I finally understand your passion." That's really my wish for everybody. Find your Toni Collette in Hereditary. Find that thing, television, music, movie, whatever, that you're so passionate about that any point where somebody does not acknowledge how great it is a snub personally to you. I would hope that everybody find their Toni Collette in Hereditary. Frank Stallone donated. Thank you. Would the plot for Shrek the Third have been better if they hadn't killed off Frog John Cleese at the beginning of the movie? Well, I'll tell you, Frank Stallone, I don't know if I've seen Shrek the Third, but I know how it starts now. I don't know. Have you seen Shrek the Third, hon? Would it have been better if they hadn't killed off Frog John Cleese? Mara kind of shrugs and says, I don't know. I will report back when I see Shrek the Third. Ravage6969. Hey, Dan, love all your content. My question, are you excited at all for the new Masters of the Universe Netflix series? I'd love in all my movies for the Masters of the Universe movie. That's a great idea. It'd be good SEO clickbait when the new show launches. Yes, I am, because it combines two things that are very tied into me when I was young that it's difficult for me to be objective about. One of them is I now have two cats. I'm just going to leave them there. One of them is Masters of the Universe. One of them is Masters of the Universe, and that is the first cartoon I remember like really loving. Like that's one of the first things I remember being a huge fan of was the original Masters of the Universe cartoon and He-Man. I had Battle Cat, I had the toys and Castle Grayskull and all that stuff. I grew up on that movie, the Dolph Lundgren movie. And it's one of those movies that I know is terrible, but I love it just because it was such a big thing for me. I pushed for us to do an honest trailer for it for years, and we finally were able to do it. And I was so happy, and nobody cared. Doesn't matter. I was happy that we got that trailer out. So I have no chill about Masters of the Universe. And then Kevin Smith is somebody who I have just, he was my introduction essentially to independent movies and the concept of independent movies, because Clerks and then, going from there, Fargo and the Coen brothers and that whole wave, Tarantino, etc., hit me right when I was a teenager. And it really fundamentally changed how I looked at movies. Clerks was one of those movies that completely changed everything. So in high school and in college, I was a massive Kevin Smith fan. And I like almost every one of his movies. There's one or two that I kind of have to say, like, even as a huge fan, I'm like, okay, well, I'm glad you had fun, but no, not for me. The rest, I don't have any, it's hard for me to be objective about. And it doesn't, part of it, I'm not going to lie, is that in getting to meet him through movie fights and the different stuff that we did when I was at Screen Junkies, and knowing that like he's just as nice a person as he seems to be and as genuine a fan of everything as he seems to be, and just goes out of his way to be kind. I remember right after Force Awakens came out, he for a very brief time, he and Mark Bernardin did their show out of the old Defy offices. We had a studio there, and they would do their show there. And it was late. I was there editing, and I think they had finished their show, and the lights were off. It was dark. And this was months after we'd done our first movie fight. I don't think he'd come back and done a second one, or maybe he'd done two, but no reason to remember who I was. And he was sitting on his phone in the kind of the lobby, the reception area. And I walked in. I was going to the kitchen to get something, and he looks up. He's like, "Hey, Dan, what's going on, man?" And I was shocked, first of all, that the guy knew my name. I was just going to walk right on by, and I'm like, "Oh, hey, Kevin, how's it going?" And I thought that was going to be it. He was going to go back to his phone. I didn't know he's probably doing something important. He's like, "Did you see the wars? What did you think about the wars, man?" And he just struck up this conversation with me for 2-3 minutes about The Force Awakens, and he had no reason to do that. He wasn't on camera. Nobody was watching. It was just the two of us in the room, and he's just a fan, and he saw another fan and he wanted to have a talk about it. And so I'm a huge fan of the guy professionally and personally. I hope that our paths will cross someday in the Schmodown, because I would love to just have the chance to face off in that way. Long story short, much like Kevin Smith, I've taken a simple question and woven it into a tale. Long story short, I am excited for it because it's the combination of two things that I really, really love, and I'm excited to see what his take on it is. And I will be, whether I do the movie on all my movies or not, I'll be there and I'll be waiting for it. Brian Dooley says, following you for a number of years, one of my go-to channels to hear your opinions on movies. Knowledgeable and humble in critique. You always put in the research on subjects. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Brian. I do my best. Sometimes I fudge things on the research end, but I try to always be accountable and say like, hey, I thought I knew this, or I didn't look this up, or I got this wrong. So I appreciate that you come here and that you enjoy it, and I hope you keep coming. Thank you so much for coming. And then Jan or Jan Jablonski says, cheers from Poland, Dan. Which upcoming MCU project, movie series are you most excited for now? I have to say it remains What If. I love What If. I love the concept of What If. I read the comics when I was a kid. I saw that it sounds like it's going to be coming out this summer. I will be there. If it's weekly, I will be there weekly. I will stay up till if they come out at 6 a.m, I'll stay up till 6 a.m. There's a lot of great movies coming down the pipeline and a lot of shows that I'm interested in. Of course, Loki looks really cool, but for me, What If was one of those comic books that just was every month I would look forward to the new issue of What If. They kind of published it off and on when I was a kid. And I would say, hey, I can't wait. I can't wait to see what it is. What's it going to be? Because it could be anything. It could be limitless. You didn't have to worry about continuity. You didn't have to worry about fixing the storyline later down the road. And it was always so interesting. So What If is my favorite. If you're watching and you like the show, I'm going to say, what if you squish the like button? Because I think we got around 600 watching and less than 200 likes or just over 200 likes, whichever one. If you're watching and you like what you see, I'm not going to cajole you, but I'd love it if you squish the like button because it does help the show grow. Let's get to another story. And this kind of is piggybacking on a new or a story that we talked about last week. Knives Out 2 just keeps adding great cast members. So first of all, Leslie Odom Jr., Oscar nominee Leslie Odom Jr. has joined the cast. So now he is part of the Knives Out crew. And then Kate Hudson is also now in the cast. She is part of Knives Out too. So Leslie Odom Jr. and Kate Hudson add to Dave Bautista, Catherine Hahn, Edward Norton, Janelle Monáe, and of course Daniel Craig, who is coming back to play Benoit Blanc. Really, the question has to be asked at this point, who's not in Knives Out 2? And there's been a lot of speculation about, who's the next announcement going to be? Well, I have actually an inside source, and he's legally prohibited from appearing on this channel, not for rights issues or anything. I believe he's currently incarcerated. Because of, long story short, he committed a little bit of identity fraud because he wanted to get all 3 vaccines. He just didn't feel good about diving into dumpsters and trash cans and whatnot. But it kind of went sideways on him. So he's not currently what you would call a free man. But he is still able to feed some intelligence out from lockup. And so I actually have been given an insider, what would you call that, honey? The name for like a piece of information that I'm the only one that has. I don't know. A nugget. Yeah. I have an insider's nugget of information. There's about to be a huge number of new cast members announced for Knives Out 2. And I'm very happy and proud to announce exclusively on this show, what a coup that I was able to get these cast members first. So without further ado, I'm happy to say that these are just a few of the cast members that will soon be announced for Knives Out 2. Weird Al Yankovic will officially be joining the cast of Knives Out 2. He will not be singing or performing any parody songs. I'm actually told this is going to be a very heavy dramatic role for Weird Al Yankovic. He's going for the EGOT, really, is what he's going for. So Weird Al Yankovic he will be serious Al Yankovic in Knives Out 2. I'm also being told that Aubrey Plaza will be appearing in Knives Out 2 as herself, like canonically in the film as herself. As I understand it, they will just cut to her occasionally, kind of sardonically commenting on what's going on. So that's another interesting thing to watch. The voice of Rocket Raccoon, not Bradley Cooper, I just mean the voice of Rocket Raccoon will be in the movie. You will not actually see Rocket Raccoon, nor will you see Bradley Cooper. You will only hear the voice of Rocket Raccoon. Christopher Plummer's hologram, a hologram of Christopher Plummer will be appearing, and I'm told that he is playing the ghost of Harlan Thrombey, that the hologram will be appearing as the ghost of Harlan Thrombey. This picture would have been a lot funnier if it were like semi-transparent and maybe glowy. But my inside source did not have time to Photoshop it as much as he would have liked. So we have this. Darcy from 90 Day Fiance will be joining the cast of Knives Out 2. Now, if you've not seen 90 Day Fiance, Darcy is the heart of the show. She is the center of the drama. She can bring the drama. She can bring the pathos. She's already smoking, so this may be a recast for Jamie Lee Curtis's role. I'm not really sure. But Darcy from 90 Day Fiance. Alf will be in the movie. This is a huge exclusive. I can announce that Alf is joining the cast of 90 Day Fiance. Yo, Willie, there's a murder over here. That wasn't me. That was a clip of Alf talking from Knives Out 2. Filming has already begun. So Alf, and then finally, this is a huge get because you're bringing the guy out of retirement. This is the exclusive to end all exclusives. I can say that coming out of retirement, Daniel Day-Lewis is joining the cast of Knives Out 2. Now, he will be joining at the end of the production cycle because Daniel Day-Lewis will be playing Renoir Blanc, brother of Benoit Blanc. But he needs time because, the Blanc brothers, of course, are going to have the same accent, Kentucky Fried accent. But Daniel Day-Lewis has to first learn and master Daniel Craig's native accent, meaning how Daniel Craig himself speaks. Then he will be learning Daniel Craig's accent as Benoit Blanc. So basically, he will be able to speak as Daniel Craig, speaking as his character Benoit Blanc to make sure it's completely authentic. And then I've also been told that Daniel Day-Lewis has been working with Scotland Yard on cold cases for the past 6 months to get in character, to understand the mind of an investigator. And he is apparently close to cracking the case of Jack the Ripper. That's how good he is. He is about to crack the 100-plus-year-old case, I assume. I don't know history that well, of Jack the Ripper. So this is monumental. So, look at this list. This is an insane list of people. And we're only going to add more to it. So if I can get those insider pieces of information again, then I will feed those to you as I can. I've been told that Jack the Ripper, the murders occurred in 1888. So they're over 100 years old. It's okay. This is an interesting thing live on the air. This is going to be Dan attempts to do math live on the air. Okay. And Mara's already shaking her head. Okay. So 1888, 100 years would be 1988. So that's 100. And then if you add 30 to that, that's 2018, right? So that's 130. So 133? Is that do I have my math right? I think my math is right. It's a 133-year-old cold case. Thank you. I do have my math right. That's a 133-year-old cold case that Daniel Day-Lewis is about to crack. That's pretty impressive. I have one more story. It's maybe one of my favorite stories that we've done on the show so far, but I want to make sure that I get to your questions before I do that. Andrew Feisner says, here we go. All right. So this is, as we do on the show, if you're watching for the first time, people will send me emojis, but when Mara does the copy and paste in the document that I'm looking at, I don't see the emoji. I see the text definition of the emoji that's being sent. And so people try to find the most obscure emojis to send me. Andrew Feisner has sent me one, and we do it a little bit like beat poetry on the show. So I'll get the snapping fingers going. All right, ready? Pair character flying in the air with a red cape and a smile on his face. Thank you, Andrew Feisner. Gabe Campbell says, anime suggestion, Death Note. It's only 30 episodes and it's incredible. I'm not an anime guy, but I loved it. That sounds like I would like it too. Death Note is one that I've gotten a recommendation about a lot. AE donated and said, hey, Dan, I'm enjoying everything you're putting on YouTube and Spotify. I started watching you on Movie Fights where you decimated your competition. My question is, did you ever go easy on your fellow players? I really need to the shelf. I really need to the shelf. I'm sorry, I don't know what the last bit there means, but my question is, did I ever go easy on my fellow players? You rock. Thank you. I think watching the show, it was fairly evident that I can say that I never really went that easy. If you watch the first Kevin Smith episode, I pulled my punches a little bit at the beginning because I didn't know how he was going to approach it. But then when I saw that he came to play, well, then that's where we really, I kind of gave it 100%. But yeah, no, of all the things that I was accused of doing on Movie Fights, I think the one thing that I was never accused of doing was going easy on my opponents. Poor Spencer Gilbert got it out of. Well, I felt, who I really felt bad. If you've seen the famous Sequest episode where I literally got red in the face and apoplectic about my pitch for a show about a forgotten 90s sci-fi television show on NBC. Spencer, I didn't feel bad for. Spencer knew what he was getting into. He instigated the whole thing. Chris Stuckman was the third panelist on that show. I felt bad for Chris because I really felt like he was caught in the middle of an argument between two parents, and he was just the kid at the dinner table, just silently trying to eat his steak and just get through the meatloaf as fast as he could. So I did feel bad that Chris Stuckman kind of got stuck in the middle of that. But no, I would say that I never really went easy on anybody because most people that came on the show understood and they really got the show and they came to play. And that would be the only reason that I would kind of ease up is if there was somebody on who was hesitant and didn't really, I'm not really sure. I never really encountered that situation. Hades, thank you, Hades, said, do you think award shows should rebrand and change how accessible they are to millennials and Gen Z? It seems like younger people prefer watching everything online through YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, etc. for free. Well, that's the big thing that needs to be cracked is it feels like there is, particularly amongst the younger group with YouTube, etc., that people they want things for free. They want to not have to pay for anything. And I understand that, particularly with people making stuff on YouTube, especially at the beginning days and the earlier days, there was that expectation that, the cat is he's stalking his sister. There's that expectation that you don't have to pay. And I understand that. And really when you watch YouTube now, no matter who you're watching, you do pay in a way through advertising. But I think there's also the expectation of a lot of people saying like, well, if you want me to watch this thing, then make it free. Well, there is still a business to be had. So I am sympathetic to people trying to figure out this new structure with a lot of audience who says like, well, I don't want to pay for it. I listen, I'd be great if I didn't have to pay for movies, but and some things I get lucky I don't have to. As a critic, I'm very fortunate to not have to pay for some movies, but there are some movies that, if I want to see and I'm not able to see them early, then I'll pay to see them. So I think that that's something that I have a little bit of sympathy for people trying to figure out how to deliver stuff for that audience. I think that the advertising helps because it's kind of like paying, but not, although with the prevalence of ad blockers now, that kind of removes that barrier. But I do think the one thing that I do think they should figure out, especially with award shows, is this sort of just slavish devotion to cable and network television. That's one thing I think does need to change. They've got to figure out how to get it more accessible so that if people want to watch it not on television, they can. And I think they have a lot of work to do there. So I think that the idea of trying to deliver something that is a for-profit thing to an audience that expects it for free, as some do, not everybody, but as some do, I don't know if that's solvable because I don't know if you're ever going to come up with a solution other than literally making it free with no advertising that a lot of people are going to be happy with. But I do think that they need to do a lot of work with making it more accessible for people. Andrew Feister, thank you, Andrew, said, I said in the Discord, but I'm not sure if you saw it. What about an anime month for Movie Club going over the influential anime films? And when will we get news that Vin Diesel will be in Knives Out 2? I'll check with my source to hear if Vin Diesel, perhaps the voice of Vin Diesel as Groot will join the voice of Rocket Raccoon in Knives Out 2. Yeah, Movie Club, which is something that we do over on Patreon. If you want to join, patreon.com/Dan Murrell. Thank you for that. Allowing me to plug there, Andrew. That's something that I've thought about, is the idea of doing an anime month. We are doing one anime movie this month. We're doing international cinema is the theme for Movie Club this month, and Princess Mononoke is one of the movies that was voted on by the patrons to be included. So we are covering an anime movie this month on Movie Club, but I think an anime month would be something that would be a lot of fun. I know some of the people that are over on Patreon know anime. I know a lot of people don't, but it's something that I'm really have a growing interest in. And a lot of you have asked where my anime reviews have gone. And I'm working, I promise you, I'm working on my Demon Slayer review. There's a lot of thoughts that I have, and I'm going over the whole season and the movie. So I want to make sure that I was able to get all my thoughts down. And the editing is a little bit longer than a standard review, but it is still coming. And I know I did reviews for Spirited Away and My Neighbor Totoro. I want to get back to that soon. It really has been a very difficult year plus of trying to figure out my schedule and where I can put my time. But I'm working on different solutions.
in the next few months that are going to hopefully free up some time and shuffle some things around. So I'm glad that everybody liked the anime reviews, and I would just say, like, they will come back, I promise. I just need a little patience as I figure everything out. Ryan R. says, so stoked for Alf and Knives Out too. I've always felt he was too typecast. Really appreciate these legitimate deets. You heard it here first, folks. That's right. I'm very happy that I could be the outlet that breaks that Alf is going to be in Knives Out too. I mean, this is kind of a momentous day for us. We might get quoted in, on IndieWire or something. This could be, this could bring us dozens of hits. Who knows? Taking Back Nerddom says, Death on the Nile, better than Knives Out 2. I don't know why, just not a fan of Daniel Craig and wasn't impressed by the story or mystery in Knives Out. So not too much anticipation for a sequel. More looking forward to what's next for Hercule Poirot. Mara gave me this sign, which is, I'm close enough. I'm looking forward to Death on the Nile. I really enjoyed Murder on the Orient Express, and Mara, you've read the books, a lot of the Poirot books. Yeah, she's read a lot of the novels. I have not, but I really liked Murder on the Orient Express. So it's going to be a great time for mystery coming up. We've got Poirot movies being made. We've got a new detective in Benoit Blanc. A good time for mystery lovers out there. Corey King says, Death Note and the Devil. Mara says, Brana is the best Poirot. Death Note and the Devil is a part-timer. Oh, sorry, from Corey King. Death Note and The Devil is a Part-Timer are my favorites. As someone with limited anime knowledge, I recommend them both. No need to read this, take my money. Well, you know what, Corey? The joke's on you, because I read it anyway. I will also take your money, and thank you for that, but I'm going to read it on the air. That's no deal. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take because I think we're getting close to wrapping the show up, so I'm going to take the donation banner off. But if you're in the middle of asking a question or something, you can check the description below. That's got the we have some more questions to get to. So before we get to those, I wanted to do one last story, and we'll wrap up with your final questions. This is just something that sometimes I'm just poking around the internet and I find a weird story about someone that I love. This was just a weird story that I found, and I wanted to talk about it on the show, and no one could tell me no, so I did. Sir Patrick Stewart can only make beans on toast. That's all. The only headline I saw was this, and then if you can see that the first line of the story is Sir Patrick Stewart can only cook beans on toast. I was very intrigued by this. I mean, that's a great headline, because I immediately clicked. And this is the basic gist of the story. It says, this is from a Celebritainment, a site called Celebritainment, and it was based off of something that Patrick Stewart put on Twitter. Quote, the Star Trek actor uploaded a clip of himself tucking into the meal on Twitter and confessed that he has eaten thousands of times as he poked fun at food writer Melissa Clark. In a video captioned, my signature dish since 1948, Patrick said, quote, the only dish I can make, and I ate it probably thousands of times all the way through my childhood, beans on toast. Patrick Stewart also revealed last year that he's writing his autobiography during lockdown, where he will share tales of Star Trek and X-Men with his fans. He said that he has written 84 pages of his autobiography, that he's been asked to do it many times before, but he never had a window, and that due to the lockdown, due to COVID-19, he has now had hours and hours of free time to work on his memoirs. So 2 big breaking news things. Number one, I did not know, perhaps other people knew, I did not know that Patrick Stewart is working on his memoirs, which I will pre-order. Listen, I'll pre-order the first 84 pages. I'll proof it, Sir Patrick. I will proof those first 84 pages if I get to read your autobiography. And then the second one being that apparently Sir Patrick Stewart can cook one thing. It's a very simple concept. He can only make beans on toast. I'm a little surprised. I kind of thought he'd be like the Tooch. I thought he strikes me as the kind of guy who's like a wizard in the kitchen. Did he strike you that way, Mara? It's like somebody who's just like a great cook. Yeah, Mara says yes. She's like the Tooch. So I'm a little surprised to hear that Patrick Stewart is maybe not a great chef. But hey, listen, this is from a guy who, if you can put it in the microwave, I can make it. So I relate to Sir Patrick Stewart here. And, this just makes him even more relatable and amazing and lovable. And so, listen, you go with your beans on toast, Sir Pat Stew. You could do no wrong in my eyes. And I'm glad that you found your dish, and don't feel pressured to you've been doing it for what, 48 years you've been eating them, you said? Come on. Oh, sorry, since 1948. So way more than 48 years. Again, I don't do math. Good for you, Sir Pat Stew. Stick with those beans on toast. We've got some more questions for you to ask before we wrap up. Mystery Me says, I have exclusive confirmation that Dan's source for the Knives Out 2 cast news was Leaky Steve. I mean, listen, Mystery Me, I don't want to disagree with you here, but we all know that Leaky Steve's scoops are garbage. Leaky Steve doesn't know what the hell he's. Leaky Steve wouldn't know a scoop from the hole in the ground. Again, I cannot confirm my source, who my source is, but I can tell you there's not a chance in hell that it was that imposter Leaky Steve. Sorry, Mystery Me. Listen, here's the thing. I think that the exclusive confirmation that you got was from Leaky Steve, which should tell you that it's wrong. 11 Blue says, hey, Dan, I was wondering if you'd ever seen any interviews or videos about Rob Botton's work on The Thing and just how they're able to make the special effects for The Thing. Well, I revisited The Thing recently. Mara and I watched it right around Halloween for the... or 31 Days of Halloween, where we watch a bunch of movies. And then I think we watched it again just because we're like, hey, let's just watch The Thing again. So I've seen a little bit about it, but I haven't gone deep into it. If I ever do it on all my movies, I will definitely do it. But I will have to say the practical effects done on The Thing are some of my favorites ever. I think they hold up incredibly well by today's standards. And I haven't seen an extensive amount on that, but it's incredible work. Tony Lone Fight says, I'm here for scoops. Well, again, the actual things you can get here, but Scoops himself, I cannot confirm or deny if I know what his location is or if he may or may not be incarcerated. I cannot confirm that or deny it. Kaylee Vaughn says, are you still watching The Masked Singer? If so, what's been your favorite reveal this season? We watched the first 2 episodes, I think, 2 or 3 episodes. We have them all on the DVR. We haven't given up. We just haven't been in that Masked Singer mood. I think we're probably just going to sit one night and just watch them all just right in a row. Because really, once you watch the performances, if you fast forward through the ads and you fast forward through the judges, which we do, it's like 20 minutes to get through the whole episode. So I think we'll probably just take a night and binge them all. So we're a little behind on Masked Singer. And then Stacy says, oh, here we go. All right, ready. Wow. Is this real? This is real. All right. Stacy, unless we have another comment coming in, bringing us out with a little more emoji beat poetry. Ready? Get your snaps ready. Here we go. This is a good one. Oh, this might be my favorite one so far. Ready? Hippo character going really fast on his chair, propelling the chair across the room. Thank you, Stacy. Thank you, everybody that sent in Super Chats and Streamlabs. And thank you to everyone who watched the show. We will be back, or I will be back. It's going to be interesting. We'll see. Next week's show structure might be interesting. So I'm not going to tease too much about next week's show, but we will be back next week with another live show. And it might be some interesting. It'll be unique. That's what I'll say about it. Yes, it's going to be a very unique live show next week. We're still improving things and going to make improvements over the weeks as we continue to do this. This was a little bit of an experiment. We didn't really even know how many people would watch, but the viewership has been great. The engagement has been great. I love talking with all of you about the news. Before we sign off, if you're watching and you have liked the show, if you wouldn't mind just squishing that like button one more time, squish that subscribe button, share the video if you like. I know I'm falling into the YouTube trap, but it's part of the standard operating procedure. Really, I'm going to get the channel yanked if I don't ask you to like, share, and subscribe at least once. Although I'm not required to tell you to smash the like button, which is why I'm asking that you squish the like button, which seems a little more playful. But thank you for watching. We will be back next week with more movie news, your questions, and everything else. This is one of my favorite parts of the week now, and I appreciate everybody who's hung around as we figure it out. So thank you, everyone, and we will be back next week. Bye, everybody.